to judge God, to determine if God's guilty or innocent. Does he get life in prison, or are we going to let him off? We have zero context because we never have been God, nor will we ever be God. So for us to even guess, is God guilty or innocent? Is he mean? Is he nice? Is he fair? Is he unfair? God says, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will harden whom I want to harden. I'll destroy who I want to destroy. And I'm not asking your advice, nor do I need your advice. But if we're not careful, then that judgment that we give God, it turns into resentment. Typically, our assumptions about God will determine whether we trust him. It will determine our level of worship to him, what we say about him, what we say to him, if we pick up his word, if we pray. I'll give you an example of this. Like, for example, John 15. I'm going to read this to you. It says, I am the true vine. This is Jesus. It says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Here's a message from Jesus. Listen, this is what God does. If you don't bear fruit, he cuts you off and he throws you into the fire. And if you are bearing fruit, even if you are bearing fruit, he'll still cut your branches and take you through that pruning process so that you'll bear more fruit. And if our context is that God's mean and nasty, then we go, what? That's kind of messed up. I love show and tell, so I brought something from home. Stay right here. I'll be back. It's a plant. And it's way heavier than it looks. Now, if you look at this, it's kind of a tree plant thing, right? And you look at it, it's hard to tell what it is. It's actually a tree. You can't really tell what kind of tree it is. Oh, unless you're that guy. It's an orange tree. Okay, so apparently all of us except for him, we can't tell, but he looks at an orange tree. I look at it, I don't see oranges. Do you? So to me, it doesn't look like an orange tree. Here's what I did. I went to Home Depot, and I told the guy, I love oranges, I love orange juice. So what I want is I want to grow enough oranges where I can make orange juice. He goes, I got a thing for you. Brings me over here. It was about that high, and it had a couple little white blossoms on it. He goes, this is what you need. It's an orange tree. And the crazy thing about this is it'll keep producing oranges, hundreds of oranges. I'm like, sold, I want it, right? So I throw it in the cart, and I go, what else do I need? And he takes me over to the orange fertilizer place, right? And he's like, here's a $20 bag of fertilizer, right? I go, sold, right? And then we're over here, and he's like, this is, a special orange stick, and you need that? And I'm like, sold. Like, I thinking this guy's working on commission or something, right? And have this shopping cart, like a $250 orange. I'm leaving. I got all this stuff, and I'm excited. I go home. I show my wife. We're going to make orange juice. We're going to be rich. I'm going to sell oranges to Vons and Trader Joe's. It's going to be amazing. Fertilize it, and I water it, and I I put this thing there, and, I'm like, sweet. I go to bed, and I woke up. I just thought, maybe there's going to be oranges tomorrow. I run out. Ooh, no oranges, right? And when we left the store, there was like 5 or 6 little blossoms. He goes, see those blossoms? Those are going to be oranges. But by the time we got it home, all 6 of them were gone, right? But then I wait, and I'm excited because then 3 months later, there's white blossoms everywhere, like hundreds of white blossoms. Like, yes, every one of those is going to be an orange. I'm already telling my neighbors, pretty soon I'm going to have some oranges for you. Get ready, it's going to be oranges everywhere, right? And then we had a really strong wind in San Diego, and it was like, whoosh, and then I ran home. No blossoms on the tree, just gone. Now, I've had this tree for 2 years. 2 years. I want to show you something. This is an orange. See that? 3 days ago, I knew, I was so excited. I threw the wind blew, and I saw the leaf move, and there's this orange. I'm like, yes! And then I came home, and it was sitting here on the bottom. This is it. 2 years? I've invested money, time, energy. It's so important. I assign this to my son. He has 2 chores: brush his teeth and guard the orange tree, he has to water it. He has to make sure it's okay. And we're and I'm like, man, I just want you to give me an orange or 2 or 3 or any, like 1 would be nice. That's what this orange tree was made for, to produce oranges. I'm just like, man, can you please just do what you were made for? Please, listen, it's not too much to ask, After the first service, this guy came up to me and he goes, it's probably a male orange tree. I'm like, what? How do you check? How do you even know? A male orange tree. Come on. The guy at Home Depot said I'd have 100 orange from this thing, And at one place, my neighbor has a tree, and it's just a little bit bigger, right? And it's covered. You can't even see green. It's just all oranges. He's coming over my house going, I got to get rid of some of these oranges. I have some. You want some? I'm like, no, I want some from this tree, I want your oranges. I want my oranges. And everybody's like, forget it, dude. Just, get rid of it. My wife's like, curse the tree or die. I'm like, come on. I need your support. I don't want to. I've invested time, 2 years of my life, like $400 in fertilizer and supplies. I want oranges from this thing. So I'm not ready to get rid of it yet. Somebody said that earlier. The guy at Home Depot said, I don't need it in the ground, but I'm thinking about that. I'm going to try that. I want to ask you this, though. Have you ever read something like this? I'm the vine, my father's a branch. I'm the vine. I'm the true vine, my father's gardener. He cuts off the branches that don't bear fruit and he throws them away. Have you ever thought, does God like that? Is that fun for God? You ever think of God like this kid who has a magnifying glass and we're all, like ants, and he's catching the sun rays and zapping ants I got another one. That's funny. Cool. Do you think God was to Uzzah when he struck him dead and burned with anger, he was like, yeah, take that, Uzzah. Yeah. You think he was giggling as he saw Job's life stripped of everything? You think he was kind of giggling, thought that was funny? You think it's cool when, like God's watching a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old girl that we saw up here last week die of cancer? Think God's like, yes, cool. Do you think God enjoys seeing his people suffer? Do you think he wants to cut the branches that aren't producing fruit and just throw them away? Man, I have an attachment to this stupid tree. I can't let it go. And I'm serious. I'm going to hang on to this thing. Pray for my tree. I'm not going to let this thing go until it gives me oranges. It's just a stupid tree. This is God and his people. Do you understand that God loves you so much that he wants you? He wants you to be a little bit afraid of him. It's a godly fear. He wants you to pay him respect. He wants you to trust him completely. He doesn't want to sit and ask your advice on how to do things. He doesn't need that. But he aches. His heart aches when we start pinning all of our anger and frustration and judgment on him to the point where we can't grow, the point where we get separated from him. And he says eventually, if that's where you want to live, then you'll be pruned, you'll be cut and thrown into the fire. But he's not happy about it. He doesn't want that to happen. He's God. But we have to be careful because it sneaks in and it's very subtle. And before you know it, we can start saying, God, man, I'm mad at you. And we start putting all the evil and darkness in the world that we don't understand on God. It's God's fault. He doesn't care. And man, that's not the God that I read about. He says, please, just produce fruit. That's what you were made to do. And yes, I'm going to prune you. If you produce fruit even, I'm going to prune you. Even when you're producing fruit, there's going to be pain. It's never this perfect life. The world, the planet, it will never be perfect. The Lord promises perfection when he comes back. That's it. And if you're waiting for that to happen, it's not happening. So you're just going to say, I'm done trusting God because you see a lot of pain and stuff that you don't understand. So what do? Well, you do what Matthew 18 says. See, Matthew 18, the disciples came to Jesus and they said, Jesus, who's going to be the greatest? Can we be the greatest? And Jesus looked around in the crowd and he saw this little child. And he called the little child to him and he brought him here. He was a little child, a little helpless child. And he goes, listen, you guys were asking me about how to be the greatest. See this little child? Completely dependent on their caretaker. You get that? This little child has nothing to offer.